In today's program, exploring Sri Aurobindo's divine teachings, an interview with Mr. Ramesh Bijelani, part 1 of 2, we will explore the life and teachings of Sri Aurobindo through a humble devotee, Mr. Ramesh Bijelani. Sri Aurobindo, yogi, philosopher, and poet, was born on August 15, 1872. In Puducherry, he founded a community of spiritual seekers, which took shape as the Sri Aurobindo Ashram in 1926. There he devoted himself for the rest of his life to the development of his integral yoga. In that year, he entrusted the work of guiding the seekers to his spiritual collaborator, Mira Alfalfa, 1878 to 1973, who was called the Mother in the ashram. The ashram eventually attracted seekers from many countries throughout the world. Mr. Ramesh Bijelani is a medical doctor by qualification and has worked as a professor at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. He is a member of Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi Branch Trust, engaging in giving inspirational talks and writing on spiritual subjects. Mr. Ramesh Bijelani regards his first visit to Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi Branch, in 1992 as a significant turning point in his life, from which he began to look upon Sri Aurobindo as the spiritual guide and the Mother as the source of love and grace.
In fact, the whole life is a series of choices. And we make these choices primarily at 3 levels. One is the emotional level. I feel like doing it, or I feel like having this thing. So that is emotions. The second level is the intellect. That is reasons why I should or should not do something. And we find that although we place reason on a very high pedestal, it is a very unreliable tool because it can justify just about everything.
Some say that life is made up of different choices. It is often impossible to see where a life-altering decision will lead. So whose hands should we give the right of decision to? Our emotions, intellect, or some other reliable sources? Mr. Ramesh Bijelani gives us a detailed answer in light of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's philosophical understandings.
But then do we have a tool more reliable than reason to guide us? That is where the psychic being comes in. That if we are careful to listen at all points where we have to make a choice between what is right and wrong, there's a shy and faint, non-assertive voice which is quite content to be ignored, which does tell us what is the right thing to do. We have to catch that voice. And if we detect that voice, we'll discover that although it is shy and faint, it is an extremely clear voice, not associated with any doubts and questions. It does not require the crutch of reasoning to tell us what is right and wrong. So it does not go into reasons. It does not require the type of analysis that rationality goes into. It is not dependent on that type of a crutch because it is a part of our divine essence. It is just another aspect of the soul. And divine is all-knowing. And if you know everything, you just know what is right. You don't have to find any reasons for it. So this voice, without going into any reasons, in very clear terms, without leaving us with any doubts or questions, tells us what is the right thing to do. So, which means that the choice should be made at the level of the psychic being, not at the level of the emotions or the intellect. So, this is how we should make the choices in the course of our daily work. But that doesn't mean that the other two, that is the emotions and the intellect, always have to be in conflict with the psychic being. Since they are also manifestations of the divine, they may be imperfect, but they are capable of moving towards perfection. And it is the movement of these superficial parts of the being, that is the emotions and the intellect, towards perfection, which is one way of looking at yoga. It is also one way of looking at what the true purpose of life is. Because as they move towards that perfect divine essence of ours, as their voice starts speaking in the same language as the language of the soul, the discrepancy between these different parts of the being starts disappearing. And when that starts disappearing, it becomes easier for us to make these choices, because then there's no conflict in life. And that is how, by making choices at the right level, we are growing spiritually, we are growing in consciousness, or in simple terms, we are becoming a better person.
Let's take a while to thank all the divinities that bless our life with immense grace. We'll be right back. Graceful viewers, welcome back to exploring Sri Aurobindo's Divine Teachings, an interview with Mr. Ramesh Bijelani, part 1 of 2. Another practical dimension of spirituality lies in guiding us to the right attitude towards our work. Mr. Ramesh Bijelani set us a good example and considers himself to be a chemist who dispenses small doses of love and wisdom from the inexhaustible pharmacy of Sri Aurobindo.
Spirituality can permeate all life. The first thing is the way we look at our work. Our work does not have to change outwardly, which means we can continue to be a teacher or a doctor or an engineer or a person in the media, in the television. One can continue to do what we are doing, but we can look at this work differently from the way it is commonly done at the mental level. We can look upon this work as something that we are doing as instruments of the divine, because the divine has given us the abilities to be able to do that work, and also the circumstances in which that work can be done. And it is our privilege that we have been chosen as the instruments for doing that particular work, because the divine has no shortage of instruments and it is not in a hurry. So the fact that we have been entrusted with that work is a privilege, and therefore we should try to do this work with the best of our ability, put our heart and soul into it. But even after doing that, we should not insist on a particular type of outcome. It doesn't mean that we should not expect an outcome, a certain outcome, because any thinking person would expect a certain outcome as a result of doing something. But then since we are not the doers, we are only instruments, and the larger picture or the design behind that work is something which is there with the divine and not with us.
Since the outcome of what we do is destined by the divine, does it mean that we need not to be responsible for our work and can treat it in an indifferent attitude?
But at the same time, because it is our privilege to do the work, not to sort of be indifferent to the way we do the work. We can't take the stand that since the outcome is already determined, I can do the work any which way I like. The work is being done as a privilege, and therefore we have to put all our heart and soul into it, and it has to be offered to the one who has given us this privilege. So it should be fit to be offered to the divine, and therefore it will be fit to be offered to the divine only if it is done to the best of our ability. So this is the attitude to our work, whatever work we do. Now when we do the work in this spirit, we find that it tends to also get good guidance and greater chances of success, the way success should genuinely be looked at because of divine grace. So we earn divine grace through this approach. And outwardly the work may still appear to be the same, except that some of the people around us may feel that now this person is doing the job very well, whatever she does is done very perfectly, or that this person is by nature very loving and affectionate and compassionate. So they may notice some of these things, but outwardly the difference is not much. The difference is more within you. And that is one of the important things in spirituality. It is within you, not outside. It doesn't depend upon any outer symbols or any outer rituals and ceremonies and so on. It is all within you. So it is something which is going on within you, which is getting reflected in outer life. And it is getting reflected in outer life to some extent, but much of the attitude to work is within you. So this is one.
Amiable viewers, it's a pleasure to have you with us today on Words of Wisdom.